by paying attention to climate risk factors and the likely impacts of climate change. Not many of you may be aware, but more than 50% of Indonesian population live in rural areas, which are administratively organized in about 83,000 villages. This rural population is about 3 times the size of the whole of population in Spain. That is why Indonesia has taken the first step through the Climate Village Program, or better known as a PROCLIM. There are stimulate communities to carry out efforts to improve their resilience against climate change. PROCLIM is a national program managed by the Ministry of Environment and Forestry to increase villagers' participation, as well as other stakeholders in strengthening their adaptation capabilities against climate change and in reducing greenhouse gas emission. Today, the PROCLIM has registered 3,047 activities driven by 1,276 various stakeholders at the site level. The activities include 26.9% mitigation activities, 4.68% adaptation activities, and 68.13% joint adaptation and mitigation activities, and 0.29% other activities. Their program also aimed to recognize existing climate change adaptation and mitigation programs which have contributed to improving welfare according to the local situation. To sustain such efforts in adapting and to mitigating climate change, we need communities to support and empowerment, relevant policies and regulations, funding, gender participation, public capacity, and support from external stakeholders, including governments, private sector, non-governmental organizations, and academic institutions. They are essential to ensure that community empowerment and participation programs are effective and on target, and therefore will continue to create social, economic, and environmental values, as well as to help reduce climate-related disaster risk on the local level. So that's all my speech at this time, and thank you very much for all your kind attention. And I end up my speech by mentioning wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Minister. And after this, without further delay, we will begin our first session today that will be moderated by Dr. Kartini Syahrir, Advisor to the Coordinating Minister of Investment and Maritime. To Dr. Kartini Syahrir, the stage is yours.
Thank you, moderator. Thank you, Vice Minister of Environment and Forestry of the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Mr. Aludohong. I think two things very important that you mentioned that very relevant to our discussion. First, strategic program of Jokowi to promote and encourage resiliency from the bottom level, that is the villages. As you mentioned, 50% of Indonesia live in the village. The second one, I think, no less important, is that every stakeholder should be participate from the government, private sector, NGO, all society, you name it. We have to be part of the what we call time for action. And for this time, we have 4 speakers that present, yeah, from the field, what they have done, and what the challenge they are facing, and to cope with all these things. I invite here first is Ms. Elim Sritaba, please. Give an applause. The second one is Mr. Gama Galudra. Please, Mr. Gama. The third one, Dr. Siun, see you then, Pak. Mr. Jarias, Dr. Jarias. And Professor Weden Kumpiadi. Please, Pak. We would like to start first with Ms. Elim Sritaba. Oh, sudah pergi. Oh, sini. Pak, let's get a picture first. Today is the picture, tomorrow is history. Elim Sritaba, let me continue, is a Chief Sustainability Officer. Can you imagine as a chief? I always refer chief as a man, you know. She works a lot for community development. For over than 20 years, she has an experience in the finance, forestry, supply chains, business process management, and business strategy. And she is a Chief Sustainability Officer from the Asian Pulp and Paper of Sinarmas. Yeah. And she works so much, and she loves to do community development and capacity building. Let us listen from the field what he has done, what she has done, and what the challenge that she is facing to promote the community development. Please, Elim. Mau diangkat ini? Nah, sini.
Thank you, Dr. Kartini Syahrir. Ladies and gentlemen, I will presenting how private sector contribute to the empowering communities for the climate action. So, just at a glance, what is APP? APP is a brand of pulp and paper industry from Indonesia, where we are also produced not only from Indonesia but in China, and our market within the global 150 country. And this is the basis of our action. We have our sustainability vision roadmap in Sustainability Roadmap Vision 2020 when we launched in 2012, and followed by a forest conservation policy in 2013 when we decided no more conversion in natural forests, and then we identified high carbon stock and high carbon conservation value within our forestry, and also to ensure that zero deforestation in our supply chain. And also, as a company, have a responsibility in our operation. We also contributed to the SDGs goals from the operation in forestry, people and community, and also in our product and production. I think like what Dr. Kartini said, and also our Deputy Minister, that rural communities are critical actors who either protect or put additional pressure on our environment. This is something that we realized that stop deforestation needs to addressing also community challenges. CIFOR in 2014 has been issued its study about how community and smallholder lands are the key actors here. Through our integrated forestry and farming system, the IFPA, we provide seed funding and technical assistance to support these communities switch to sustainable agroforestry methods, improving productivity and incomes while also educating them on their role in protecting forests. Our target to 500 villages and allocated fund $10 million to fund this program, and then focus on the 6 pillars about the program concept. The progress up to now, right now we have been implemented in more than 300 villages and involving more than 80,000 villagers. Household include 84 women group in the programs. In 2019, we found 70% of the location where the program has been running are free from forest fire spot. And also we identified now 90 local champions from before two in the beginning of the program. Some of them are ex-illegal logging workers, ex-contractor, which is we invite them to be part of the program from all within 5 provinces when APP supplier concession operating. 20 villages have been achieved Proclaim Award. The Climate Village program was developed by our Minister of Environment and Forestry. The program who encourage communities and other stakeholders' involvement to implementing good practices for increasing climate resilience and reducing greenhouse gas emission in the village level. This is the special women program as well. Last year we collaborated with Martha Tilar Group to educate and provide skill to 1,000 women surrounding the forest. Up to now, already has more 700 women being taught in beauty class. More than 400 has been trained about local herbs, how they can providing also, we also providing the solar seed program together with Martha Tilar Group to educate some young women to be a spa therapist. There are 2 villages we have been targeted to become eco-edu tourism. 4 years implementation, we found that the most important is how to ensure the product market and operational sustainability. We have engaged 3 big partners here to help us to scaling up the program, and with the clear key indicators of the performance to measure from the community livelihood factors and also environment sustainability factors. CIFOR, ICRAF, and TNC Indonesia have been working with us as a partners. They will assist us to scaling up in each targeted villages, while also developing new business model that maybe we can copy to other, to all our suppliers and even for maybe Indonesia. What is the lesson learned? I think for now the IFFS reach in each villages is now only less than 15% of the scope. There will be a potential scaling up. That's why the 3 partners helping us, and the 3 key points that we have to strengthen moving forward is the capacity of the village institution, market access, and access to the fund or capital. One of the sample that we have scaling up, this is one of the sample village that working together with TNC in West Kalimantan. We started with a small initiative, some of the corn intercropping, fish, pepper, rice, cattle, and now we also invite Fintocraft, which is they can open market to international. They come to the village and then train the women how to use the local rattan to be more value-added product can be marketed to the international through Fintocraft in Indonesia. I think to changing people mindset or is like a transformation needs a time and infestation of your time, resources, and money are needed. We always open for collaboration to achieve the goals of sustainability, not only for APP, but for the communities and of course for our country, Indonesia, to contribute to the global and climate emergency. I will show some video that we start in Mengkiang village, West Kalimantan, on how we start with to train the women to use the local rotan and then
presentation on the IFSC, S, sebetulnya Desa Makmur Peduli Api. As far as I remember, back again to 2015, at the time, that's the APP, Sinarmas committed to have 500 villages, that they are going to develop the community, including women. Women here become the main pillar for the change to make the people stop doing, for fire. And here we can see how women is so able, so much to make that village more prosperous than before, and it also at the same time shows that this is the very good example between public and private partnership. That's here the participation is very clear that you can see, and we do hope and looking forward that the 500 villages will be a very good example the way that Indonesia participate in the Paris Agreement. So I follow it for the last almost 5 years, I believe, here. And even when I was invited to Vatican last month, I'm so very happy to bring the tea, the ginger tea there. While I'm talking, They enjoy the tea, and once they know that it's come from the women at that village, they share my happiness with them. So the next speaker is Mr. Gama Galudra. This is also very interesting. He is the Indonesian Country Program Director, the Center of People and Forests. Mr. Galudra have more than 17 years experience in forest governance, common property rights, and, this is nice, community-based forest management. He works to improve and accelerate community-based forest management nationwide. Pak Galudra, we like to hear your experience. Share it with us, come.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity, Mrs. Moderator and colleagues. I think I want to share about our work in strengthening capacity of village communities for climate change resilient challenges and opportunities. Okay. This is all the programs that are being developed that related to climate change resilience at the village level. All of these programs are being made by all the governments, partners, and everyone. So, if you look at the purpose of VCR program initiative, all of them are the same command. They all talk about capacity development. They all talk about livelihoods. Yeah. The same way that Mrs. Ibu Elim talked about livelihood and also about capacity development. So what we do in RECOF right now is, well, we always do focus on capacity development. We are trying to strengthen the people's rights, governments, institutions, and we also have a strategic goals in 2018 and 2023. They are consisting of 4 elements. First, about landscape collaboration in changing climate, governance, small and medium enterprising communities, and also the last one is social inclusion and gender equality. So, in this VCR, the Village Climate Resilience is all about we are putting ours in the landscape collaboration in changing climate. We all try to build local capacity. Is it that? But of course, we need to have strengthened institution in right-based settings. In community, they have to ensure that their land are secured and the tenure security are being secured in this case. And also a new partnership building to address climate change. As Bu Elim already addressed that, it's also about the private, public, and people partnership in this case. Also about support collaboration for sustainability, that we need also about funding in this case from donors or also from the government to ensure that climate have the capacity against the climate change. And also cultivate multi-stakeholders platforms to discuss and negotiate it about how they can cope together about the climate change issues. It's not working. Yeah. It's not working. I think it's need to reset. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. So what we do in the RECOF work related to climate village resilience. So first of all, it's about community entrepreneurship in coffee agroforestry. We have our case study in Bantaeng in the South Sulawesi. It's a phases flooding due to change of agroforest cover or forest cover to cloth monoculture. So at that time, we think about how to control the deforestation in this case. One of those ideas is that in 2009, I think, 2009, we developed some kind of social forestry together with the government of Indonesia about village forests. And this village forest is not about access to land, but also access to facilitate and extensions. Yeah. If the people have the guarantee to access the land and get some kind of social forest permits, they have the access to not only to land, but facilitation extension from the government of Indonesia. Another part is also enhance NGOs and academic extension capacities in this case. When we always talk about capacity building to the local community, we always forgot about the capacity building for the facilitators in this case. They are very important because they are the ones who are working together with the people and they are closely collaborate with the people. So to ensure that they have a good capacity is also directly go into these social forestry facilitators or the forest extension workers. Of course, there's a lot of happening. When we talk about community, also we want to ensure their independency. They have the independently to improve their livelihoods. One of those work is about entrepreneurship. Yeah. Entrepreneurship will make the people, local villagers, are able to improve their livelihoods, and also they will have some kind of support to ensure that they will have some kind of funding, for example, loan funding money from the support from the provincial government and also from the central government. Another issue is about different way, is about the voices of the communities. Okay. Sometimes we always forgot that we always want to ensure that the villages are also part of the system of the fire prevention, but do they have their voices in this case to involve in the fire prevention and monitoring? So one of those is whether they have that kind of better knowledge about how the fire monitoring and preventions. So that the way it should be is about to equip the people to have a better knowledge at village level about fire monitoring and preventions. And also community also participate in fire alerts and monitoring and then integrate mechanism into the government fire alert systems. This is also the way that community to adapt with the climate change issues. So this is the last slide. It's about challenges and opportunities. Okay. One of those is a lack of tenure security is the primary cause of forest cover change and related disasters. Yeah. Without that, people, if they have no low land tenure security, people will devastate the forest. Strong facilitation and guidance is needed to ensure that forest committees can improve livelihoods and understanding about environmental risks. And also a multi-stakeholder platform for fire prevention and monitoring can help communities understand prevention and monitoring of forest fires. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Galudra. It's very interesting. Almost the same, I think. That's the participation of community. Okay, it's very important, but no less important again and again that all the stakeholders, including the government, should facilitate, yeah, should pay attention, yeah, on the needs of the communities to make them more aware about the fire, to make them understand about it. Without the intervention, without the participation, without the active participation of the government, as well as other stakeholders, we cannot optimize, yeah, the way that we want the village people to join against the climate change. The third speaker is Dr. Siun Jarias. Dr. Jarias is a chief of Dayak Misik from Central Kalimantan. Dayak Misik is a peasant group movement that aims to defend the Dayak indigenous people who works as farmers in shifting fields throughout the countryside and inland or various other professions in all villages in Central Kalimantan. Misik Dayak Farmers Group was motivated by concerns that land as a valuable asset for Dayak indigenous farmers who were born, live, cultivated, and live on customary land did not receive recognition and protection by law and the state as legal rights. Dr. Jarias emphasized here how the law and the state have to play a major role to ensure that the people has their right on their land. Please, Pak.
Thank you, moderator. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, maybe in this occasion, I as a presenter different than others. The first one, because I would like to deliver my presentation in my language, in Bahasa Indonesia. So that I apologize with you because I will deliver this in my language, and I think it doesn't matter because my script presentation has in English translation already, and I think will later be displayed on the screen by the committee and or the organizer. And in this occasion, I would like to tell frankly about the situation and condition of the Dayak, especially in Central Kalimantan. Nothing, something hidden, frankly. Thank you, forgive me. I would like to start in Bahasa Indonesia. And the second reason I wear this hat as a mark that I come from customary community, Dayak people. Baik, akan saya sampaikan dalam bahasa Indonesia presentasi saya. Dayak Misik artinya sebuah gerakan moral, artinya Dayak sadar. Bisa juga diterjemahkan secara harfiah, Dayak bangun tidur. Tapi ini dimaksudkan adalah Dayak sadar. Sadar akan dirinya bahwa dia adalah penduduk asli Pulau Kalimantan. Sadar bahwa dia punya anak cucu keturunan yang akan dia tinggalkan nanti. Dan sadar bahwa masa depan mereka tergantung kepada keadaan saat ini. Terutama terkait dengan hutan dan lahan. Lanjut. Where is it? Oh, this one. Ini ya. Pak Budi bantu. Oh ya. Gerakan ini dalam rangka membantu bagaimana supaya orang Dayak sebagai penduduk asli memiliki tanah yang diakui, dilindungi, dan diberi legalitas oleh negara ini, oleh negara kami sendiri. Kenapa demikian? Karena selama ini tanah yang dikelola oleh masyarakat Dayak sejak nenek moyangnya ratusan tahun silam dan telah masuk Indonesia merdeka sampai hari ini belum ada pengakuan perlindungan dan legalitas dalam bentuk sertifikat misalnya. Sehingga ini memudahkan para investor datang membawa selembar surat HGU dan mengakui bahwa tanah itu adalah milik mereka. Lalu penduduk asli bagaimana? Nah, ini persoalan. Nah, ini Provinsi Kalimantan Tengah. Ini provinsi terluas kedua di Indonesia setelah Papua. Kalau tadi Singapura dipresentasikan memiliki luas 7.650 km persegi, Pulau Kalimantan jauh lebih. 7.650 orang per kilometer. Pulau Kalimantan, terutama Kalimantan Tengah, memiliki 17 orang per kilometer, 17 people in square kilometers. Singapore 7,650 people in 1 kilometer square. Jadi kita cukup menyajikan. Di atas tanah inilah tumbuh hutan yang tebal, thick forest. Di dalam tanah inilah banyak macam tambang. Many kind of mine in the ground. Ini membuat para investor berdatangan ke Kalimantan Tengah. Dalam konstitusi kami memang ada dalam pasal 18B Undang-Undang Dasar 45 memberikan jaminan bahwa masyarakat penduduk asli, masyarakat hukum adat diakui keberadaannya sepanjang masih ada dan tidak bertentangan dengan undang-undang dan akan diatur dalam undang-undang. Inilah satu persoalan juga, undang-undang dimaksud sampai hari ini belum disahkan tentang pengakuan keberadaan masyarakat hukum adat. Kalimantan Tengah ini memiliki 14 kabupaten, 13 kabupaten, 1 kota dengan penduduk 2,6 juta jiwa saja, tadi 17 orang per kilometer persegi. Ada 139 kecamatan dan 1.568 desa dan kelurahan. Dan yang terpenting ada 87 kedamangan. 87 area of the customary law, customary people. Ada 87 wilayah kedamangan yang dipimpin oleh seorang damang kepala adat. Ini menunjukkan bahwa masyarakat adat di sana masih ada. Ini realitas ya, realitas di Kalimantan Tengah. Yang pertama penduduk aslinya adalah suku Dayak. Yang terbukti 1894 telah mengadakan rapat damai di Tumbang Anoy jauh sebelum lahirnya Negara Kesatuan Republik Indonesia yang disebut hari ini NKRI atau Republik Indonesia. Sejak 1894 sampai 1945 Indonesia merdeka, sampai 1970 maka kehidupan orang Dayak tenang-tenang saja, aman-aman saja. Tapi sejak 71 berangsur-angsur kehidupan suku asli orang Dayak ada masalah. Karena sumber daya alam tadi mulai dieksploitasi oleh para pemilik modal, oleh para investor. Sampai hari ini keadaan telah luar biasa, bahwa hampir di semua desa sudah dimasuki oleh gerakan eksploitasi sumber daya alam, baik berupa hak pengusahaan hutan, baik berupa perusahaan tambang maupun perusahaan perkebunan besar swasta, dalam hal ini kelapa sawit, misalnya Wilmar Group dan lain-lain. Tidak masalah kehadiran para investor ini. Pada saat mereka datang, mereka menjanjikan akan memberikan kesejahteraan, kehidupan lebih baik, dan seterusnya. Tetapi yang kita pahami bahwa di balik itu memang perubahan ini belum dapat sepenuhnya memberikan jawaban kesejahteraan bagi masyarakat setempat, khususnya masyarakat penduduk asli ini. Dari 1.568 desa di Kalimantan Tengah, kurang lebih 1.000 desa itu adalah penduduk asli yang hidupnya tergantung kepada hutan dan alam sekitar. Pengambil alihan tanah-tanah di sekitar desa ini yang telah dipraktekkan sejak 70 sampai hari ini ada 5 modus. Pertama, memberikan kompensasi. Yang kedua, memberikan tali asih. Yang ketiga, ganti rugi. Yang keempat, pura-pura jual beli. Yang kelima, merampas. Tidak memberikan apa-apa. Kesimpulannya, tanah-tanah itu beralih kepada investor. Program Dayak Misik adalah sebuah program semacam gerakan moral memohon kepada pemerintah untuk memberikan 5 hektar per keluarga. Bukan 1-2 keluarga yang kita mohonkan, seluruh keluarga yang ada di 1.000 desa tadi. Karena apa? Karena hampir semua wilayah desa ini sudah akan diambil alih oleh investor. Kasus yang terjadi 258 desa di Kalimantan Tengah itu sudah habis wilayahnya. Tinggal rumahnya saja. Nah, inilah contoh yang barangkali tidak perlu dilanjutkan. Masyarakat asli tidak minta banyak. Minta 5 hektar saja per kakak untuk diberi legalitas. Kemudian dikerjasamakan dengan investor supaya produktif dan menjadi sumber pendapatan. Sehingga apabila ada penegakan hukum yang relatif keras dari pemerintah untuk melarang petani ladang masyarakat Dayak ladang berpindah ini dengan cara membakar, maka sudah ada solusi. Hari ini solusi belum ada, hanya melarang membakar. Tidak boleh berladang dengan cara membakar. Solusi belum ada. Ini salah satu persoalan besar hari ini di Kalimantan umumnya, Kalimantan Tengah khususnya. Mestinya ada solusi. Solusi inilah yang ditawarkan oleh Dayak Misik supaya setiap kakak diberi legalitas 5 hektar. Ini program Tora sudah diluncurkan Bapak Presiden. Kenapa tidak ini diarahkan kepada masyarakat Dayak ini? Kemudian tanah 5 hektar yang diberi legalitas ini dimitrakan dengan investor yang masuk ke setiap desa itu. Selama ini investor boleh dikatakan tidak sepenuhnya menghiraukan bagaimana masa depan orang desa ini. Kalaupun 1-2 atau puluhan keluarga yang ditangani, lalu keluarga yang lain bagaimana? Sementara tanah di sekitar desa itu telah diambil alih. Program Dayak Misik mohon semuanya dengan gerakan 5 hektar per kakak ini. Kemudian setiap desa kita akan menjaga, memelihara, merawat, melindungi hutan adat minimal 10 hektar. Ini program. Dan kita minta dukungan semua pihak, pemerintah daerah, DPR, NGO, NGO nasional, internasional, bahkan PBB. Kalau boleh bantulah program ini. Ada 2 hal nanti yang akan diperoleh manfaatnya. Kalau program Dayak Misik ini berhasil, maka dari kurang lebih 1.000 desa anggota Dayak Misik ini nanti, yang pertama mereka ini nanti bisa berhenti dengan melakukan cara perlelangan berpindah dengan cara membakar. Bisa berhenti karena ada solusi. Kalau hari ini disuruh berhenti, pasti melawan. Karena tidak ada solusi. Menyuruh berhenti berladang dengan cara membakar hari ini sama dengan membunuh orang Dayak pelan-pelan. Oleh karena itu kita minta solusi. Kita siap tunduk kepada aturan, siap tunduk kepada program-program nasional dan internasional tentang perubahan iklim, climate change, tapi beri solusi. Tidak hanya melarang-larang saja. Ini mimpi besar. Masyarakat Dayak yang tergabung dalam Dayak Misik, mohon tanah 5 hektar diberi legalitas setiap kakak, mohon jembatani, fasilitasi agar dikerjasamakan, bermitra dengan investor yang masuk ke desa itu, sehingga mereka akan mendapat pendapatan per keluarga. Mohon agar hutan adat didukung untuk dilestarikan, dijaga. Ini akan memberi kontribusi besar kepada program internasional terkait dalam rangka mencegah perubahan iklim. Kalau tidak, maka hal sebaliknya yang akan terjadi. Jadi program Dayak Misik ini hanyalah sebuah gerakan moral, tapi mempunyai anggota kurang lebih 1000 desa nanti targetnya, sekarang sudah 800 desa lebih. Dan ini sungguh berharap agar mendapat perhatian, mendapat dukungan dari seluruh pihak terkait, termasuk NGO internasional, termasuk PBB melalui kegiatan COP25 ini, supaya memberikan dukungan. Dan sebaliknya nanti, kelompok Tani Dayak Misik akan memberi dukungan penuh kepada program pencegahan perubahan iklim ini. Kesimpulannya, sudah saya sampaikan kesimpulannya tadi bahwa kalau program Dayak Misik ini berhasil, maka orang Dayak sangat berterima kasih kepada semua pihak, terutama kepada pemerintah Republik Indonesia, kepada NGO, kepada PBB dan lain-lain yang telah memberikan dukungan. Karena masyarakat Dayak akan merasakan keadilan, merasakan kemakmuran, merasakan keharmonisan, dan akan tidak berlanjut konflik dengan investor yang ada di desa-desa Dayak Misik ini. Kalau ini berhasil, kalau mimpi besar ini berhasil. Kemudian yang kedua, tradisi ladang berpindah dengan cara membakar, kami sadar betul bahwa itu mesti berangsur-angsur dihentikan, ditinggalkan. Tapi sekali lagi kami memohon, berilah solusi. Tidak hanya melarang dan menyuruh berhenti, berilah solusi. Solusinya bagaimana? Inilah usulan kami solusinya. Berikan legalitas 5 hektar per kakak, jembatani supaya ini dimitrakan dengan investor supaya produktif dan ada penghasilan setiap keluarga, maka bisa berhenti. Jadi ini ladang berpindah dengan cara membakar. Kami sadar bahwa ladang berpindah dengan cara membakar tidak mungkin kami pertahankan berlama-lama, dan ini kami harap solusi ini direspon dengan positif. Yang kedua, hutan adat di setiap desa kami supaya didorong, difasilitasi untuk bisa kami pertahankan. Kalau ini terhimpun semua hutan adat ini, maka cukup besar pengaruhnya mendukung pencegahan perubahan iklim yang hari ini kita bicarakan. Ini mimpi besar yang kami harapkan sebagai kesimpulan akhir daripada program Dayak Misik ini. Kalau program Dayak Misik ini sukses, berhasil, maka ini bisa jadi model untuk mengatasi persoalan masyarakat penduduk asli atau masyarakat hukum adat di tempat-tempat lain atau di negara-negara lain. Bisa menjadi model. Kalau ini gagal, ini menjadi mimpi buruk kita semua. Dan kami yakini kalau ini gagal, konflik dengan investor di setiap desa tidak bisa terhindarkan. Kami jamin itu akan terjadi. Oleh karena itu tidak ada pilihan. Sukseskan program Dayak Misik ini. Dukung oleh semua pihak dan oleh pemerintah daerah, pemerintah pusat, dan semua pihak terkait. Tidak ada pilihan. Kalau ini gagal, resikonya akan terjadi konflik berkepanjangan dengan siapapun yang mengganggu, yang masuk ke wilayah desa kami. Kan kami sudah tidak berpikir tentang martabat. Yang kedua, dampaknya yang positif adalah dukungan terhadap pencegahan perubahan iklim sangat signifikan dari masyarakat hukum adat Dayak ini, terutama dari kelompok tani Dayak Misik ini. Sekian, terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jarius. Well, the big dream of Dayak is our dream too, that hopefully they can claim legally their land. We do also believe the program of the government, the present government, President Jokowi, that began around 2 years ago and continue up to the present, to return the land to those who have the right in it, is working up to now. And we are looking forward for that, because what we have right now is the government who really support the people. Yeah. Indigenous people, you may call it, yeah. Simple society, that it is said by anthropologists. We follow it and we share it, and we do believe, optimist, that very soon that all the indigenous people, ethnicity, 415 ethnic groups in Indonesia will enjoy their land, including the Dayak people. The Dayak people is our people too. Yeah. So their sorrow is our sorrow. Their sadness is us. So we got together. Don't worry about that part. Your voice is our voice. Thank you so much. Yeah. And we would like to hear, yeah, the last speaker, Professor Widen Kumpiadi. He's an anthropologist, yeah, like myself. I'm an anthropologist. I like it to hear this here. Maybe you can have some inputs and give your thought, your vision on about the community development, yeah, community building, yeah, the village people, yeah, because village people, people in the village, is what we call as a homo vulnerabilis, those who got affected and suffered the most. At the same time, they are an important part of the change, including dealing with climate change. Can you please share your thought, your vision? Thank you.
Thank you, moderator, for the time given to me for the last speaker this afternoon for this session. I would like to tell a little bit about my funny story today, that I have very, very late breakfast today. Yeah, at 2 o'clock Indonesia, but here it is 7 o'clock. So that's why it is very late breakfast in gimana ini namanya? In Spanyol, ya, in Spanyol maksudnya. The name. Nama tempat ini apa? Madrid. Yeah, in Madrid. Sorry, yeah, in Madrid. So, yeah. This is professor. Okay, so sometimes forget words or even. Okay, so thank you very much. if Pak Sionjarias has already promoting or telling us about a big dream of the Dayak in Central for them, I'm going to show you the answer with 3 dimensions. The first dimension is social, mean that in social interaction, the Dayak has to respect other people, to love, peace, tolerance, and diversity. All people are brothers and sisters. Economic dimension, that nature is the main source of livelihood. Therefore, they have to treat nature selectively, carefully, and politely. And the third one is environmental dimension, that environment or nature is the center of the Dayak culture. The destruction of the nature will result the destruction of the Dayak. Okay, because there is only economic, social, culture, and also the spirit, yeah, in the environment. Here, Adil Catalino, Bacuramin Kasaruga, Basengat Kajubata. This is national greetings already in Indonesia. So when we are speaking in front of the audience, we must say these greetings. Adil Catalino, Bacuramin Kasaruga, Basengat Kajubata. And everybody must answer, Arus, Arus, Arus. Means, yes, I will do it. So what does it mean? Adil Catalino means that everybody, all the Dayak, must be just or fair to everybody. Okay? And the second one, Bacuramin Kasaruga, means that in the lives of the Dayak, they should refer to the perfection and holiness of the heaven. And the third, Basengat Kajubata, means that the Dayak lives are ruled by the Almighty God. God provides all things the Dayak need, for instance, food, water, fortune, mate, clothes, bread, etc. The third one is alam, adalah darah dan nafas orang Dayak. This is the most important, the key, the blood and breath. So without nature, we die. No nature, no Dayak. No to eat. We can bread, no blood, and no bread. So it means that nature is blood and bread for the Dayak. So here, sign that is the most important thing for the Dayak life. Alam adalah ibu bagi orang Dayak. So they consider that nature as a mother. Mother give milk, yeah. Mother give love for them. So like the mother. So that's why they have to respect. They have to treat nature politely. The Dayak thinking of the nature. The whole life of the Dayak cannot be separated. It is already mentioned in the slide, yeah, from the existence of nature around them. Yeah. Nature is the most important aspect in their life, since nature provides everything for their whole life. Nature is their blood and breath. The destruction of nature, for example, will totally destruct the life of the Dayak. Adat or custom, I say it, a holy Bible for the Dayak. Why? Because adat contains values and norms that guide their lives. Everything should refer to adat. So that's why I call it adat as holy Bible for the Dayak. While hukum adat is the customary law, this is the traditional institution that building, developing, maintaining, and controlling adat and its implementation among the Dayak community. 3 pillars of local wisdom. Recently, many scientists concerned in their research with local wisdom. So I would like to explain for us in the afternoon about 3 pillars of local wisdom. One, that local wisdom has its godliness. Why? Many activities of local wisdom of Dayak concerns with the power of supernatural. Therefore, the owner of local wisdom or the Dayak have the loyalty and obligation to realize and maintain the local wisdom in their life. Secondly, humanity. Local wisdom of Dayak concerned with custom inherited by their ancestors, and it contains the values of humanity. Therefore, the inheritance and implementation of local wisdom bring advantages for their lives. Environment. Local wisdom concerns with how to keep eternal harmony between human being and environment. So that's why local wisdom is teaching human being how to be wise with environment and to treat it as our beloved mother and our good friend. Now, the preservation of nature, how the Dayak preserve the practice of local wisdom. Pasion Jariah explain about ladang berpindah, shifting cultivation, or slash and burn system. Yeah, and what other terms for it? Okay, and for the Dayak, ladang berpindah, or many people think that ladang berpindah will destruct nature. But for us, the Dayak, when they practice ladang berpindah or shifting cultivation, that culture, that ladang berpindah is sometimes called slash and burn. Practice, it is the Dayak culture on how they open the forest by slash and burn for their rice field. This practice is still debatable among the scientists, whether it is to destruct or preserve the forest or nature. Ladang berpindah is one of Dayak cultural heritage, and it has been practiced generation by generation since 100 years ago. Based on local wisdom of the Dayak, ladang berpindah activities do not destruct the forest, but it is to build and to improve fertility of the forest. Ladang berpindah is one of the Dayak's ways to maintain the values of their culture. Because in ladang berpindah, it is not only economically there, but also culture. Hutan Tajahan. Hutan Tajahan is sacred area of virgin forest with an abundance of biodiversities. In this area, there is a small hut as a place to put offering of food or flowers and decorated with yellow clothes in accordance with the sacred area. Any activities of fishing, hunting, cutting trees are prohibited by adat or custom. Hutan Pahewan. This is a kind of sacred areas as well. Springs are special place with salted water where any animals and birds take a bath and drink water in the late afternoon. This type of area belongs to sacred place. Kaleka, it is a special area of ancestors' inheritance where we find a number of fruit trees or fruit garden belongs to extended family. These also sacred area that may dominate or destroy it. It belongs to all members of extended family. 5, Pukong Himba. This is an area of extensive forest that becomes forest preserve for all the surrounding customary community. This forest preserve is maintained for 2 purposes. First, every one of the surrounding forest may open the forest to be their rice field. And second, it is a special place where the Dayak can move Gana. Gana, this is a special priority for the Dayak. Gana spirit. When you would like to open this forest for your rice field or to sell it for the oil palm estate, for instance. So they consider that there is Gana there, spirits, so the Dayak can move them to other place, so we can open this forest freely. Yeah. Then traditional conservation. Certain trees such as rubber, ulin, jelutung, nyatu, tengkawang, bengaris, durian, and bamboos are prohibited to be cut. Yeah. Why is nature is very important? This is anthropology perspective. Nature has multifunction. Livelihood, everybody knows it. And all of you agree that livelihood, nature, sorry? Okay, that nature give anything, yeah, for their food. And ritual, certain big and tall trees, cave, river, spring, mound, etc. become media of ritual. Traditional knowledge, certain birds, snake, animal, and trees give important information symbolically. And traditional medicine, the roots, leaf, bark, and stalk of the trees, certain grass, bamboo, mushroom, etc. are used for healing. Yeah. Blood and breath. Yeah. This is a chain of life. Yeah. Soil, land is a chain that ties the past, the present, and the future of generation. And cultural identity, and then family asset. Okay. You see the challenges, as already said by Pak Sion, palm oil estate, for instance, and then alternative solution, improving the 89 institution of customary law in Central Kalimantan, and then customary community should be facilitated and supported in building and increasing their strong awareness to maintain their local wisdom for preserving their surrounding environment. One of the wise methods is to provide incentive, yeah, for the local people, for the Adat community. And then the last one, decreasing and controlling the establishing of palm oil estate, coal and gold mining. This is related to the customary land ownership in Central Kalimantan. Last, sustainability science should be put as one of general subject at high school and university curriculum. Okay, I think that's all for the presentation, and I would like to show you the destruction of the forest. Is it opportunity or threat? Palm oil, you see? Coal mining, yeah. Traditional gold mining, yeah. And then rubber plantation, peatland and forest fires, illegal logging, landslide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Mugyadi, the Vice Rector for Academic Affairs, University of Palangkaraya. Can you imagine from 4 speakers, 3 of them talking about the Dayak people? So you are not alone, yeah? We share everything with you. This is a very special moment. Can you imagine? We have over than 400 ethnic groups, and we focus today, this whole session is about the Dayak people. So I think your concern will be with us. Thank you, Pa. Philosophy of life. Nature is a mother, very important. 2 main elements for dealing the climate change is, as far as I understand, nature and man, human resources. Without them, no state, no nation, no climate change. Indonesia, we call it Indonesia as a Ibu Pertiwi, meaning our mother, the womb of woman, the source of life. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we would like to take, we only have very limited time, but I would like to invite Ibu Emi Sajati, the Dean from the Forestry, the faculty from University of Lancang Kuning. Maybe you would like to share it for 1 or 2 minutes with us. Where is the Ibu Emi Sajati? Bapak, oh, sorry. Why? His seat here is Ibu. Sorry. My apology. Please, Pak. Why don't you be here? Then you can give comment.
Okay, my name is Semi Sajati. I'm from Lantang Kuning University, then of Faculty Forestry. I have two part of respond. The first, right and property for the ethnic, and the second is agroforestry system to Sinarmas and RRPP. The first part, maybe I want to explain. Stake of right only for owner, property, claimant, and authorized use. And the grid of right is access and withdrawal, management, exclusion, and alienation. Maybe the owner have 4 rights, proprietor 3 rights, claimant 3 rights, and user or authorized user is only 1 right. Now, I want to respond Mr. Jarias and Mr. Kumpi. Maybe Daya Ethnic will have a owner, but this law of Indonesian Republic, sorry, have 6 right, special from landscape forestry. The first, ownership of natural resources, state mandate to make policy, politicize, make management action, run setting about government and regulation by government, management by institutional instrument, and oversight conducted by government. Translation. Now, in Indonesian right, maybe 3 reasons. The nature of natural resource give birth to give nature law based on interaction and depend of element and limitation and carrying capacity in landscape. The second, the nature of natural reserve to interconnect and independent of relation between individual or group of people. And in line, the third, the tourism natural resource management policy can only be implement of management instrument, planning, organization, activities, supervision. It is the first part. The second part.
Can I have 1 minute?
Okay.
Yeah. Because our time is,
The second part, maybe. Agroforestry can be developed in variety of land condition, but wet and dry areas. I think agroforestry can be adaptation to mitigation of climate, and agroforestry in economic scale to very hope to exact it. Maybe this is my conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Sajati. Only 1 comment and 1 question. If you can give a very brief, otherwise I will give to the speaker if any comments. Please, Bu, but it's very brief, Bu, very short.
Thank you very much, Bu Kartini. My question for Mrs. Elim Sritaba. I appreciate your presentation, especially about integrated forestry and farming system. And my question, how you related this program to the SDGs achievement? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bu. Bu Elim, would you like to respond? 2 minutes.
Thank you, Bu. I think just now, yeah, we already mapped the SDGs goals and our program IFFS, how we rating with SDGs. Basically, we already put in our sustainability report because of we address SDGs number 1, no poverty, and then some indicators that have been developed together with C4 and ICRAF. In this scaling up program, we will have a clear measurement for each indicators that also related to the SDGs. I think a lot of SDGs related. Number 1, no poverty, education, and climate action, and as well the gender equality. So yeah, a lot of factors. So we use UNGC Compass, and then we are now working with our partner as well, consultant, to put in our sustainability report all the SDGs achievement. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Elim. I think this is our session now. We thanks very much to Ibu Elim Sritaba, Dr. Siun Jarias, Dr. Mr. Gama Galudra, and Professor Kupiadi Weden for all the nice presentation dealing with the community development, something from the field that you get, and also you share your ideas and your thought. Please give a big applause to all the speakers, and thanks a lot. Okay, can we get the picture? As usual, you have to take the picture first.
Yes. After this, please stay in this pavilion because we have another session right after with the title of UNESCAP session on climate and SDGs, and will be moderated by Ibu Laksmi Dewanti. So please stay on your place. And please give a round of applause to all our speakers and moderator. And I would like to inform you, for those who have attended this session, you will receive this red ginger as a souvenir. This is the product of the integrated farming system. So you can get it outside, but after that you have to be right in this room again, because we will begin shortly the next session.